Be here again.
Morning.
Morning.
Well, we've had so many conversations about all the illnesses that we've had during the winter. It sounds like we've got the state is got low flu risk, and we're seeing COVID numbers go down each week.
Yep.
We still have people in the hospital. People are still dying, but it's improving.
Right. So the last 2 winters, obviously, you guys, I'm sure, remember we've had these huge spikes in cases and hospitalizations, and people were worried that maybe we would see that again, and it just looks like that has not been the case. So you can see these big spikes that we've seen the last 2 years, and then this year we had a little increase when the weather got colder, but it really has been nothing like the last 2 years. So that's a big thanks to the high rate of vaccination, high rate of immunity from people having been sick with it before. Like you said, it hasn't gone away. It's basically turned into another one of those, the word you use is endemic, meaning it's just something that's around. People are getting it occasionally. It's something we need to pay attention to and be thinking about and monitoring, just like influenza and other infectious diseases as well. But it's kind of faded into the background with these other ones. Yeah. So that's a good thing.
Very good.
Matt, have you seen Jurassic Park?
I have.
What's your favorite? The first one? Mine's the first one.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that as a kid, going to the theater and just being
frightened.
Oh yeah, I mean, I read the books. The book was great.
I was very frightened. So. You know Wayne Newton is in that, or not Wayne Newton? What's the guy's name from Seinfeld? Oh, the next door guy. Newman. Newman's in that. Thank you, Brandon. Sorry.
I think Wayne
Newton.
Wayne Newton sings the
He's in something, but not that. Sorry.
So Steven Spielberg brought these dinosaurs back to life, and now it sounds like science is actually there are plans to bring back what were they extinct animals. Can that happen?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But there's a company that was founded, in 2021, Colossal Biosciences. And there's some geneticists and people that are sort of on the cutting edge of what we can do as far as cloning and things like that. And their idea is that we have so many species that have already gone extinct and many more that are going extinct each year. And many of these are since humans have been around and because of human intervention that we've seen a lot of these things. And so the idea is, can we possibly bring these things back, right? The idea of de-extinction. And the way that you would do that is go and find, we know that, you can go out and in permafrost, you can find, bones and tissue of woolly mammoth and stuff like that. Well, there's a little bit of DNA in some of those tissues still, and some of it's preserved. Now, it's not a full genome we're talking about here, but there's bits and pieces of it. And so the idea is they've sort of taken those bits and pieces and put them back together and then kind of filled in the gaps. If you remember from Jurassic Park, it's actually not that far from that idea that they had to fill in some of those gaps with other sequences then of closely related animals. And they're getting to the point where they're starting to think about, okay, now if we have this full sequence, taking that and basically doing our sort of mechanisms that we've already done for the last 20 years for cloning of animals, to be able to potentially then develop an embryo, you put it into a related species. So like for the woolly mammoth, the closest related thing would be like an elephant. And so you'd actually use a surrogate elephant then to grow up a new woolly mammoth potentially. So they're saying like 2027 maybe would be the earliest that you would do something like that.
And then it would be I don't even know if you could reintroduce or how that would look. It'd have to be all controlled probably at first, right?
I mean, it brings up so many interesting questions.
Yeah.
I mean, ethically, is it appropriate to do it? I think their argument is, well, if it wasn't for humans, they would probably still be around, so why don't we bring them back? But I think it's a very different world they're going to be bringing them back into than 15,000 years ago when woolly mammoths were around or whatever. So
We don't want to bring a woolly mammoth back. I don't. What would you bring back?
I don't want to bring any of them back.
Well,
it just wrecks the circle of life. I mean, there are, animals, they come.
Wouldn't you like to meet a real dinosaur?
No, that didn't work out. Don't you remember?
Yes, I
Jurassic
do
Park?
remember the movie. It didn't work out.
Yeah. And it's still, it just seems, like you said, we've done this. We've reintroduced animals to parts of the country or parts of the world where they've gone missing, and then people say, "Ooh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. They're eating up all the X and X."
A lot of unintended consequences have often been seen, and it's very possible you could have that situation again. So, supposedly, their thought is the woolly mammoth, the thylacine or the Tasmanian tiger.
Oh, that's what that'd be good.
Mm-hmm.
And just last week they announced they're going to now be working on the dodo bird as well.
And the dodo and Tasmanian tiger are more recently extinct.
Right. So
correct?
the dodo bird was went extinct in like the 1700s.
Oh wow.
So so more recently. So who knows? They have a whole bunch of money. They've been given
a lot of
funding.
That. Yeah.
And they have some really smart people working on it, so we'll see.
What animal would you bring back?
I don't know. I mean, passenger pigeon is another recent one. That was the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So there might actually be some better preserved DNA samples of something like that.
Yeah.
But it's just a really interesting thing to kind of ponder and think about. Is this a good idea? Should we be doing this, right? And I don't know. I don't have the answer.
First comes a passenger pigeon, and then the passenger pigeon flew.
And then 10 years after, the passenger pigeon pet.
There you go.
And the birds, they're that's the next thing we're worried about, the bird flu. And that potentially could be a lot worse than COVID.
Well, I think there's always been, we had, 2009, the H1N1 strain circulated. And again, the H's and N's just refer to sort of different versions of influenza. So different proteins that are on the surface of the virus. And that's where people come up with those distinctions. Typically, like H1N1 is one of what they call avian influenza strains of flu that initially circulate in bird populations. And then usually through another animal like a pig or something like that is how those gain the ability to then be passed to humans. So usually in places where you have all three of those animals together, so a bird of some kind, something like a pig.
A mink.
Oh, yep. And humans, then you have the potential for those viruses being passed around, and they change a little bit and then can potentially be able to infect humans. So that's what we saw. 1918 was an H1N1 strain that there was no previous immunity to, went around the globe 2 times, killed about 25 to 50 million people. But that was a very different situation than what we're talking about now. So in 2009, we saw that H1N1 was highly infectious, but didn't cause a lot of death or severe disease. And hopefully people are monitoring these things, and after the last 2 years, we're going to pay a lot better attention to when these things do start, if they can jump to humans, paying attention to what's going on.
Interesting conversation today. Thanks for being here, Dr. Badtke. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Matthew Badtke from Jackson College. More of the morning show right after this quick break.